I would encourage people to view it kind of like an economic portfolio. If you're an expert trader, you might be doing something different than a diversified portfolio.
You mentioned your vegan diet when you were in college, and if there are any vegans that are listening, I want to know your take on veganism as a healthy diet, because there are a lot of people that are vegan and that they mention that as long as I can get my micronutrients in, it's a healthy diet for me, et cetera. So when you were doing it, were you getting all your micronutrients in? Do you think that if you did a vegan diet today, would it be as ineffective as it was when you were in college? Or with the knowledge you have now, could you do that and live a robust, healthy lifestyle? Or would there still be things missing that you just would stay away from that for yourself?
I'll give you a couple answers to that. So First of all, there are a lot of healthy vegans. There are also way more ex-vegans than there are healthy vegans. So if you look, there's not a lot of data on it, but if you look at survey data, the over 2/3 of people who become vegan stop doing veganism. And then there's also even stronger data that the vast majority of people who call themselves, I don't know about vegan, but the vast majority of people who call themselves vegetarian eat some fish or even some chicken some of the time. And so there's also a lot of loose definition. But I have no doubt that there are also people who are straight up full vegan and do perfectly well on it. I don't disbelieve that. I just think that it's probably a pretty small number. But on the other hand, I was definitely doing the best that I could at that time, but I happen to know, orders of magnitude more about nutrition than I did at that time. And so I would do it differently. And I think that I would do better on it, but it's tough to say because I don't really believe that. I think it's obvious that most people who go vegan don't wind up as, they don't wind up as bad as I did, right? Mm-hmm. Like the average experience of someone who becomes vegan, even who quits a year later, is not, well, I was vegan, but every single tooth I had got a cavity and, I went psychotic. And so I stopped. That's not the typical reason someone quits veganism. It was too hard or they were tired all the time or something is way more common. And so I do think that I probably have some kind of genetic disorder in the synthesis of some compound that is essential to bodily function that is not found in any of the supplements that I was taking at that time and is not found in a vegan diet and is very high in organ meats, because that would perfectly explain why I was trying to do veganism the best I could. I was also taking all the supplements that people said that if you're a vegan, you should take. And then I just, between that and instituting a high organ meat, high nutrient dense animal food diet from Weston Price style was just complete night and day for my functioning. Like, I don't think the average person would go through a journey like I did unless they had something idiosyncratic about their biochemistry. And so I assume that I have that. I just haven't found it yet. I've thought of some candidates, but I haven't confirmed anything that would explain that. So it's still a mystery to me, but I guess I'm a little bit of a canary in the coal mine in the sense that my experience underscores that there are certain types of nutrients that are much easier to get from animal foods. And yeah, other people might not have some whatever genetic defect I probably have. But that's not to say that their body's not going to have an easier time if they just get those things in. And so from a nutritional perspective, I would never advise anyone to go vegan because there are just more robust ways to go about almost any goal you could have for veganism. So for example, what are the values that people who are vegan generally have? Maybe they don't want to kill anything that's conscious. Like you could make a very strong case that an oyster is not more or less conscious than a plant. I think it's a debate, but the consciousness of bivalves is, oysters and clams and stuff is questionable, right? Yeah. You could believe like the China study. So if you follow T. Colin Campbell, you could believe that you want animal foods to be as close to 2% of your diet as you can get. Or you could believe like Joel Fuhrman, who's another popular vegan doctor, that you want to eat at least 90% of your diet as plant foods, but you can allow 10% as junk food, and that can include animal foods. If you believe either of those things, if you just included, 2 ounces of like an ounce or 2 of liver a day and 1 or 2 clams and 1 or 2 oysters, you could meet the liver wouldn't fit into the consciousness thing, but in the 2% or 10%, right, from Campbell or Furman, you could meet the 2 or 10% easily and be, in order or 2 of magnitude more protected from zinc deficiency, B12 deficiency, and a bunch of other deficiencies just by including a handful of those extremely nutrient dense animal foods. And if it's a consciousness thing, I just think the same thing is true of including some bivalves, some clams or oysters. So I'm not going to argue with someone's ethics, but if someone was coming to me and saying, look, if someone just came to me and they were against animal cruelty, I'm going to lead them to the many alternatives to factory farms, be it hunting on the one hand or, ranchers who are doing pasture-based animal feeding that treat their animals well.
Are you still trying to diet on chicken, broccoli, rice, dry turkey? It's no fun. And a lot of people avoid steak, but one of our sponsors, Piedmontese Beef, has amazing cuts of steak, some that have really low fat, like their flat iron steak that has 4 grams of fat and 80 grams of protein per steak. And then their ribeyes, which are just amazing, juicy, and fatty. So there's no reason to diet with chicken anymore. Andrew, can you please tell the people how to get Piedmontese?
It's over at Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your entire order. Head over there right now.
Against killing anything conscious, I'm going to say, well, how do you think about clams from that perspective? And I'm not going to, I wouldn't force anybody to abandon their ethics, but I would encourage them to think through their ethics and to see if those ethics are reconcilable to including a small or moderate amount of highly nutrient dense animal foods that best comport with those ethics. Because I think that it's not that no one can be vegan and thrive, but you're just way more likely to thrive if you've covered those bases.
And when it comes to like a meat-based diet, would you conjecture kind of the same thing? Like, could somebody that's on a meat-based diet just maybe have small amount of fruit and vegetables and get some of the nutrients that they need from that? Or is there not even a reason to? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's actually like a radically different thing because as far as I can tell, no one goes on a carnivore diet for ethical concerns.
No.
Like I've never seen anyone who, thinks it's ethical to kill a cow, but unethical to
I'm just
like
talking
pick a
about
coconut.
just optimal, I guess, and just like I don't particularly love vegetables, but I do eat them here and there. And there's a lot of concern over like cholesterol, and I know that that's like a loaded thing with cholesterol, heart disease, just over consuming of fat. And it's my understanding some people have genetic predisposition to some higher dietary cholesterol issues because of heritage and things of that nature. So would it make some sense for somebody that's mainly meat-based to just at least implement some vegetables? Do you think that's wise, or do you think it's like maybe not even necessary?
I think the same principle is true that your diet will be more robust to deficiencies if you include plant foods. I think I would encourage people to view it kind of like an economic portfolio where, if you're an expert trader, you might be doing something different than a diversified portfolio. But if you don't know what you're doing, you probably should be investing in a retirement account where someone else puts your money in some index funds or something like that. And they're diversifying it in a way to protect it against the risk of, it does protect you against the risk of making too much money, but it also protects you against the risk of losing it all. And so I think if you diversify, you can view your diet as a portfolio of nutrients, and, each nutrient is like an asset class. And so, but there's also a bunch of toxic things and potentially harmful things in foods that your body tries to clear out. And so a lot of people go carnivore because there's more of those potentially toxic things that you need to clear in plant foods than there is in animal foods. But I think when you diversify across the spectrum, you are protecting yourself against the downside risk of not getting enough of an essential nutrient. And you're also protecting yourself against the downside risk of accumulating too much of any one given toxin that exceeds your ability to clear it. Now, I view carnivore as kind of like, I believe that when people go carnivore, it's basically a subset of elimination diet. So there are elimination diets, sometimes for some people are like eat nothing but eat fast and then eat nothing but chicken and rice or something like that. Because the goal is to figure out what are the things that you don't tolerate from, maybe you're allergic to them, or maybe you have problems digesting them or what have you. And carnivore it's basically a giant elimination diet where you're saying there's probably some plant that I don't tolerate and I'm going to try getting rid of all of them. And if I improve, I validate the hypothesis that there's some plant that I don't tolerate, but I haven't validated the hypothesis that I don't tolerate any plant. And so I think most people who do well on carnivore would probably benefit from a systematic approach of trying to reintroduce certain plant foods that are the least likely to be culprits, and then expand that gradually to see, how can I replicate the success I've gotten on a plant inclusive diet? And what, if any, are the plants that cannot be part of that diet? So if you can expand what you eat to narrow down what you can't eat, then I think you put yourself in a more robust position. But there are vegans and there are carnivores, and there are going to be many in each that are going to be healthy. But, just like if you wanted to put all your money in crypto or something like that, you should know what you're doing more than you should if you just put it in a retirement account. And so if you're going to be a carnivore or a vegan, you really should be studying nutrition and understanding it better than the average person who just eats a well-rounded diet.
Hey, wait, before you go, you got this far. That means that you've enjoyed the heat that we're continuing to bring you. So listen, like the video, comment something down below. We'll reply back, and subscribe to the channel because we continue to bring you the heat. Seriously, do it. Love you. Bye.